Hi. My story's named Comfort, and here it goes. As much as I tried convincing myself that my father wouldn't kill my mother after he threatened to end her this morning, it was always in the back of my mind. My mother tried her best to calm me, told me not to worry, if only I stayed home. The house was silent when I came home from school that night. My parents weren't arguing. My dad wasn't yelling or banging his fist against the wall. My mother wasn't even crying. My stomach dropped. I threw down my bag and speed walked to the kitchen, the place she always greeted me after school. The kitchen looked normal. Nothing except for the river of blood that flowed out from behind the island was out of place. My legs had their own minds. They took me to her. Her legs were laying on top of each other as if she was sleeping. There were 3 stab wounds grazing her abdomen in a pyramid formation, the blows obviously deliberate. The corner of the counter was splattered with blood, much like the knife next to her body. My breathing halted as I took in her lifeless form, her lifeless eyes. Ma? I was surprised that my hoarse voice was able to escape my lips. Ma, come on, you can do it. Stop playing, wake up. I shook her shoulders, only got a head roll in response. Tears rolled in steady streams down my face. No more heavy net, uncomfortable sex talk. No more shopping for new clothes and getting our nails done. No more will she be here to comfort me when I break up with my boyfriend and needed her by my side. No, Mom, please. Sobs flowed out of my mouth as I moved my arms to wrap around her. Her blood covered my upper body as I cradled her like she did me when I was sick or in pain. My best friend was now gone, and my world was slowly crumbling.
Hey. So I have 2 poems for us tonight, and the first one is inspired by my sister. I wore your favorite shoes, the ones with pink laces and blue soles. I couldn't find my shoes to wear. They were right there, sitting in front of my bare feet, screaming, "Wear me." I would say that I'm sorry, but I'm not. You take my stuff all the time. You can deal with it. Don't worry, my feet are clean. I washed them last night. I even put them back in your closet because I'm good like that. I just thought I would let you know. Sorry, not sorry. And this second poem is inspired by my Nana. It's called Monochromatic Gray. Red shirt, blue jeans, pink sneakers stood out against a sea of monochromatic gray, the taciturn rooms patiently waiting for the visitors to come. Then there she was, white hair, pink nightgown, sitting slouched in her wheelchair, her smile lines radiate in the dull light as she portrays a face of happiness. The last memory, always the most vivid, most impactful, even when the star of the memory is no longer present. When the familiar waft of Italian Christmas cookies smothered in powdered sugar fills our home, her spirit encases the house, and our memories of her travel through the halls, each one bringing up another, and another, and then another, until we sit in silence with the same smile lines she gave me when my red shirt, blue jeans, and pink sneakers stood out against the sea of monochromatic gray.
This piece is nonfiction. It's called Concussion. I think it's pretty safe to say that I have the worst luck out of anyone in this room. Last July, after recovering from a concussion I had just gotten the previous month from passing out and hitting my head at the doctor's office, I got another concussion. I was sitting in the front row at a baseball game in Columbus, right beside one of the dugouts. I was turned to the side, talking to my friend, and wham! The player up to bat swung, let go of the bat too late, and threw it into my head. It hurt. So if anyone here thinks they've gotten a pretty cool concussion, mine was cooler. My mom tells me I'm lucky, though. I'll never forget the way she hugged me that night, my head bandaged in a soft wrap, my hair coated with dried blood. "What are the odds?" she whispered with a sad smile. The more time has passed, the more my perspective has changed. What are the odds that I get hit in the head with a bat and walk away with no significant brain damage? It's easy to pity ourselves. It's easy to look at a situation and focus on how we could have been more fortunate. It's easy to hurt inside when life doesn't go our way. It's easy. But at the end of the day, we have the opportunities to heal our wounds. Not everyone has that privilege. We may hurt, but we have enough. So when I think back to the day I was hit in the head with a baseball bat, I think, what are the odds I live to tell that story? So I guess you could say I also have the best luck in this room.
Hi, this is an excerpt from a poem called A Simple Legacy. One day, my son might ask about the table, scarred and scuffed and cracked with age, that now stands a sentinel next to my mother's books. No pristine antique, its intricate inlay marked by the ring scars of hurried generations. Despite its wear, it stands direct and sturdy on a single leg crafted of different woods, artistically turned on a lathe, branched, hooked, and digging into 4 feet, bearing the scuff scars of multiple moves with my grandmother 4 and my mother 14. When he asks, it will be my turn to explain to him about my grandmother's father, who never owned very much and was not widely traveled and was not well educated, but who made the table with his own 2 hands. He made it from a cherry tree that fell in his own backyard of the house that he helped his father-in-law build, and where he lived and loved his family and all growing things and kept his promises. All that I know of him I learned from my grandmother and my mother and the table, standing and watching our family grow as the silent testimony of a man who did his duty for his family and his country, keeping his promises every day, living to find joy in the quiet acts of helping things grow and making things for others, to bring them joy, a simple legacy.
Hi. This piece is a poem. It's called Ghosts. Happiness. Jokes stripping joy, splashing bright yellow text onto the early pages of my life. Mischief. Tricks tripping their way into my life, paper airplanes behind the teacher's back, peppering soft purple spots throughout my chapters. Sadness. Names flipped to fit unoriginal insults, blackening certain paragraphs, but not enough to outnumber the yellow and purple. When I was little, life seemed simple. The emotions I knew could be counted on one hand and accounted for by reason. Like math, they were the results of a condition, an if-then statement. If there wasn't a reason, then a feeling could not be felt. I didn't know how to react the first time an emotion latched onto me with no obvious cause as to why. An outlier. I painted over it with yellow and purple. It didn't make sense with my logical chart of emotions, so I made a new theory. I'm haunted by ghosts. I'm haunted by the yearning of someone who wants to be remembered, wants to be mourned, and I help them with that. When I can't seem to laugh at a well-timed joke, it's because I'm helping. When I'm unable to get up from bed as I stare at the morning sunlight streaming in through my windows, it's because I'm helping. When I'm in the shower, curled up into a ball, trying to catch the breaths that are floating away from me like a small child trying to reach for a balloon it lost hold of, it's because I'm helping. Too busy helping and being haunted to realize that the chapters of my life were beginning to look like bumblebees and bruises. I don't know if I will always help. All I know is I'm haunted by ghosts.
Tribute. A letter to the boy commenting on my Instagram, "Women aren't allowed to have opinions. I'm trying to figure out who the fuck brainwashed you. Who indoctrinated you into assuming you must prove your masculinity by dehumanizing women, still trying to figure out who died and made you king. Who crowned you for your bastard tongue and entitled vows, because I don't know much about you, except for the fact that your name is Zach. Your profile picture is of one of you in a hot tub desperately trying to flex muscles that you and I both know you don't have. You probably attend an all-boys school, who practices rape jokes as icebreakers, offers sexism as a foreign language, and advertises dominance as a school sport. You probably have a girlfriend whom you've cheated on more times than you've told her you love her. She probably cries herself to sleep, leaving stains on her pillows and bags under her eyes, wondering why she's not enough to feed your hunger. Zach, you're the breed of boy that mothers prepare their daughters for. When you attend college, you'll probably become a part of a fraternity, one that still takes used to hazing in the form of roofying girls, and while she lay there, lifeless in your sheets, without a conscience to rip your thirsty hands from her garden, you'll remember women aren't allowed to have opinions, and I wonder what your mother would think.
All right, I don't know quite how to follow that. Okay, mine's called Nice. Dear Cinderella, as a girl, I idolized you. There's a picture of my younger self wearing your blue dress and a plastic tiara and my short blonde hair. I was proud to be like you, smiling wide in the picture. I didn't just dress up as you for Halloween 3 times in a row. I also watched your movie and read your picture book every night before bed. How could I not be enamored by you, look up to you? You were beautiful, your dress was my favorite color, and your movie was always my preference. And you were a princess. All little girls love princesses, right? But now, as a woman, as a feminist, I tire of you. I'm not saying all princesses are bad. No, this is personal. I mean, Belle's smart, Jasmine is rebellious, and Mulan brave. You're nice. But I'm getting tired of nice. I want to be bold. I want to take a stand. And I want girls to stop worrying about being nice. I want them to stop smiling when someone says something that's disagreeable, because she doesn't want to hurt their feelings, because she is worried what they might think. I want women's magazines like Cosmo to stop printing headlines like, "How to please your man," "5 things never to tell your guy," "the sex position he'll lust for." I want women who, when they come forward for being raped, not to be slut-shamed. I want people to stop saying she was asking for it. I want the daughters I may have in the future to grow up to be their own fairy godmothers, and I want happy endings for them without Prince Charming. I'm sorry, Cinderella, but I'm writing to demand you retire. Actually, I'm not sorry. As a role model for girls everywhere, you're part of the problem. Go to hell. I'm done being nice.
This is called Another Angry Gun Violence Poem. I would say to pick up your weapons and dig your feet firmly in the ground and prepare to fight, because this is war. But this time is different. We may be children, but this is not make-believe. These bloodied shirts are not costumes, and these fists in the air are not dancing, they're fighting. Fighting people who try to turn their backs because ignorance is worse than hate. Our weapon is not an AR-15, but strained, screaming voices, a battle cry. And the ground is not somewhere overseas, but the streets of our neighborhood. Our dress code is not camouflage, and we will fight in collared shirts. We are stronger, without gunpowder, which you'd realize if you could see past the trigger long enough to see us on our knees, long enough to hear us begging, please, long enough to taste the blood that stains your hands. Unmoving, unwavering, you will not change our minds. There are no words that can patch together a person shattered into so many pieces, no words for young lives cut short, but worst of all, no words strong enough to bring them back. So take out your weapons. We declare war, but you better not fire into a crowd of children.
The 5 Sorrowful Mysteries. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. They call me a dreamer, but I never dreamed I would see the day where my brother was wrenched from my mother's arms by the devil. He is a man who goes by many names, but my people know him best as El Hielo, La Migra. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. I can count the number of times my fingers run over these beads. I can count the number of times I have mumbled these prayers, but I cannot count how many people in mi familia have been deemed a sinner, all because of a set of papers. Holy Mary, Mother of God. Chained in the back of that police car, I miss my mother, so I go through the beads one more time, counting the years that have gone by since she kissed my head and put these beads around my neck for the first time. I don't dare think of the number of beads I might count until I see her face again. Pray for us sinners. I was driven away from the heaven I was promised by those who promised that heaven would make this country great, but I guess angels aren't brown. Hell is the dirt road along a border that imprisons an entire race. Now and at the hour of our death. I see myself reflect history I learned in a class the devil thinks I'm too dull to take, but he should know better, because taking is all he knows. I see myself reflect history in my rosary, put on the table with countless others. They tell the story of defeat. But whether it's in Germany or in Los Estados Unidos, our God is the same, and we still die for him. Amen.
Hey y'all, so I wrote a poem that reads horizontally and vertically because I'm an egotist. So I'll just read both ways, one after the other, okay? Hurricane column. Falling to my death through the eye of a hurricane, plunging, flying, screaming down, pleading for your skyward winds to slaughter me, debris-laden storms to catch me by the innards on a telephone pole. Crucify me like a god with the dignity of being killed. Anything to break this pressurized silence into living rain. Your hurricane gently turns to surround me with this murderous love. Falling to my death, plunging, pleading for debris-laden storms to crucify me. Anything to break your hurricane. This, through the eye of flying, your skyward winds catch me like a god. This pressurized silence gently turns murderous. A hurricane screaming down to slaughter me by the innards on a telephone pole, with the dignity of being killed into living rain to surround me with love.
Dragons. My eyes are watering in anger and frustration because I keep trying to express myself, using new words and phrases each time, but he won't listen to me. Looking over my head, walking past my smaller and weaker body, I'm throwing my facts, words, feelings at him, but he holds up a barrier of no. You are wrong. Stop being too emotional. He doesn't even care enough to listen. The sickly feeling returns to my stomach, easing its way up my throat. My least favorite thing is being vulnerable and taken advantage of, throwing all my well-thought-out feelings and raw emotions of aching care and despair at someone who doesn't try to understand. He dares to laugh at my pain. My body wants to scream, kick, fight, and I want to breathe my fiery breath in his face, but my dragons are only in my words and in my mind. I fight with my intellect. I'm so used to being patient, told to stay calm, I just wish that others were told to stay kind. I wouldn't have to calm down if everything could be talked about. I want there to be an understanding so I don't have to be confused anymore. He forces confusion on top of my breaking spine of a heart. I wish that I could chant my slithering phrases at him and he could listen. But alas, I clench the fists inside of my head, drag my tail, and walk away. I've already wasted too much of my beautiful breath, my breath that drips with emotion and care. So I go to my cave and recover.
Tusk. You won't ever steal my ivory tusk like the elephants who are beginning to hide their tusks. Tusks that protect them. My tusk may be ebony, but it's still worth the same as ivory. Nevertheless, you will not be murdering me to mutilate my identity. I fight, bite, cuss, and spit, and I will do those things to you. I can do anything you can do, and I will do everything you do, yet a lot better. I don't want to sit at your table. It's not my style. I wish you best.
Eyes wide open. I saw a boy stare at me today from across the street. His gaze followed me to the corner, eyes wide open. It's been hours, but I can't help remembering it. I left town hoping that a change in pace or a change in place would suit me. Burn marks etched into my skin, left behind by dark times, remind me of how much I needed to leave. I threw too many dimes into a fountain there, it seems. I closed my eyes shut and allowed the memory to come. A backyard, and his sweaty body pressed against mine, eyes wide open, willing us to collide like magnets. I look down, embarrassed. Of what? Decades and miles away, I shudder in my sleep, my eyelids moving restlessly, picturing his stare and every other stare from any boy like him. I wake up trembling, eyes wide open. This is a rose. A rose by any other name would smell as sweet. Its fleeting scent came and went as I sent this letter, signing it with my name. The name framed by lines never lies. In it lies the sound that your mouth makes when it calls me. A ball of thoughts that were caught in a net and met, a form made of flesh and bones, flesh and bones. A rose still has thorns. Thrown stones don't hurt nearly as much as words. Letters tied together by cords, escaping my sore throat like a boat and diving into air. The problem that remains is my name. I wrote about it so much that it became lame. All the same, here I go again. A line from a poem written so long ago. Here it is. My name is Yeva, and I stand by it.
So first is a short characterization thing. Mark brought Charlotte to visit me yesterday, and she left me this dumb bracelet. I know she's my brother's kid, but by 7 or 8, don't they teach you not to play jokes on cripples? I, of course, had to put it on her in her presence, even though I'll never be myself again. To her, I'm still Uncle Andy, paint on his nose and arms ready to hug. When I reach to embrace her in a lopsided hug, she mirrors my stance. I guess she thought she was being so tactful to hide her other arm. She then slid the kindergartner's reimagining of the crown of thorns onto the wrist I still had. The pattern was all wrong and regular, the technique of a one-trick pony who'd run out of beads, leaving an 1.5 inches of pipe cleaner exposed. It was like a novice who'd just learned how water should look and now painted lakes and lakes and lakes. What I wouldn't give to find one and sink this monstrosity. Next is a poem called Love Notes from One Human to Another. I present you with a block of cheese. I thought it might be more practical than flowers and make for a better story. I doodle your face over and over in the margins of my math notes. The guy who sits next to me would probably think I'm a stalker if I could actually draw. If you go out with me, I promise to never show up unannounced without food. I'll be the most convenient lover. I see us one day in a small plane flying over the hazy lights of your favorite city. We wouldn't even have to speak, would be so in love. We would, though. When I'm nervous, I don't know how to shut up. One day when I hold your hand, I shall count your fingers as they graze mine, and although there will likely be 10 each time, I shall still count them to know that you are real. I wonder if your hands are soft, and if the space behind your ear is cold like mine. One day, I hope to drown my eyes under the bridge of your nose, and that will be enough.
Okay, so this is a flash fiction that I starred on today called Disney Dreams. Okay. When she was 10, she wanted to grow out her hair. She had gazed in awe at the beauty of Rapunzel, Merida, all the princesses that had inspired her. She wanted to be beautiful, strong, and smart like them. Well, too bad for you that Disney doesn't get you anywhere, her mom had told her. Now, get over here and let me cut your hair. It's a goddamn rat's nest. She learned to stop struggling, but her tears still fell as her hair fell, and the next day at school she endured the horrible whispers of the other girls whose gorgeous locks seemed to taunt her, and her tears kept falling. At age 15, she had her first boyfriend. They lasted a year, practically a lifetime in teenage years, but he never said I love you. His way of showing love was criticism. Fix your hair. I can't go to the party with my girlfriend looking like that. She said nothing in response. When she was 10, she had wanted a prince. She'd long since learned that Disney doesn't get you anywhere.
Hi, I'm going to be reading a poem called Reading Thing. Sometimes the sky can get cloudy, and we are reminded of our fragile thoughts and the ones that never returned the gift of love. We stare into a sky full of hurt, full of hate, full of thrown fists and hollow words. We seem to only notice the rain. We feel the droplets hit us with the echoes of hidden pain and broken trust. We taste the salty tears in our bitten tongues from words left unspoken. We hear the silence and the absence of life and love and color. We seem to only notice the rain. We only notice the ones we have lost and not the many yet to be found. We only notice the written stories and not the blank canvas before us all. We only notice the dreadful road behind us, but not the golden paradise of peace ahead. Sometimes the sky can get cloudy, and we are reminded of our fragile thoughts and the ones that never returned the gift of love. We may only notice the rain, but that does not mean the sun is not there.
So this first poem is called Tell Me Soon. Before the orange glow fades to black, before the dry ends shrivel and crack, tell me you love me. Before the roots weaken their grasp, before the tight cords can unclasp, tell me you love me, tell me you love me. Before the flood shatters the sea, before the mud thickens in me, tell me you love me. Before the lullabies turn to screams, before my cloth skin develops seams, tell me you love me, tell me you love me. For it's always too late, but never too soon. Please, don't wait for my parched heart to prune. This next one is called My Mountain. My mountain sits higher than an eagle can fly. It's as high as the moon, but I don't know why. Its shadow is like a night cast over noon, and I know I won't lift it anytime soon. But when I look at the mountains of others, there's something haunting that I discover, and it makes my mountain not so grand. It makes my mountain a thorn in my hand.
So my first poem is inspired by Aristides Melos' Torso of Venus, and this poem is also called Torso of Venus. First, they took your feet. You were a woman making her own path of her design, and they couldn't have that. Then they took your hands. You were a strong woman who worked and prospered, and they said it wasn't right. When men still saw you as something of beauty, they took your legs to prove that you were the weaker sex. When women still worshipped you as the goddess you are, they took your arms to strip you of your victory as well. But when you weren't deterred and still spoke your mind, they took that from you too and left you without your head. You are now just a beautiful body, finally in its place. This next one is Our Last Night on Earth. We were told the world was ending, that there was too much to fix and too little time left. We gathered together to say goodbye. Friends tried to laugh about the past. Lovers tried to make up for the future. We wept in my backyard until our eyes were red and sore, and we decided to live while we still could. We lit a bonfire and roasted marshmallows, because what harm could one fire do to an already dying world? We lay together in the grass, friends within reach, lovers in an embrace. We watched the stars in rapture until the last supernova's death left no light to reach our tired eyes. And we slept that night, praying we would wake again, but content if there never was another tomorrow.
This poem is inspired by 1984, and it's called Feeling Colors in Gray. What are we but breathing war machines, disposable heartbeats timed to fight time, our futures sketched out by their soul in black pens only to be crossed out in red? Living in faked light, the sun hasn't shined in too long, but you tell me the world has no darkness and no place to hide. One person in a city built of stone and barbed wire and lies, human hearts were made to be blown apart, world painted in ash and blood. We are not humans, just statues sculpted to resemble an ideal none of us ever needed. Except they don't let us believe in beauty. Was there ever such a thing? Did people ever live in color, breathe out of tune, with memories everlasting as stone? What is the meaning of forever? Yet I still trust that somewhere inside us, colors explode in waterfalls and our hearts melt in a corner of our thoughts they haven't broken into, human for a fleeting moment. Behind the walls of glass we wander together, look in each other's eyes and read the world. Some part of us lives purely for the sake of existing, whatever that means. We need to melt before they freeze us. They can't erase the past, but they can erase the past, but they can't erase the present. We just can't let ourselves become a part of the past.
My first poem is called Birthday Poem. The room is boisterous. Laughs and off-key melodies echo through our genuine smiles. The room is dim, lit only by 11 small flames and cell phone camera flashes. The room is sweet. Sugar tickles our nostrils and runs down our throats. The room is small. Family and friends crammed into our kitchen make our big house seem tiny. The room is quiet as everybody crowds around you, wondering what your wish will be. Happy birthday. My next poem is called Pink Skies. If only pink skies like tonight always graced your eyes, I would reach into the depths of your irises and bask in the breathtaking beauty of sorrow and never-ending wonder. I am not one to relish in the beauty of the untouchable, but you, old friend, are just what I need. You and your pink skies could suffocate me, and I would still cry for joy. I wish I could resurrect the feeling of your presence. Alas, I swallowed your soul and absorbed your infinite rhapsodies that echo in the wind. I am now you.
Our metaphor, an unfinished poem. We used to be one, now we are strangers. We never saw this coming and never thought it would happen quite like this. I'll always remember how your eyes crinkled as you said something snarky, how your body flowed to music, how hard you fell, then got right back up again. You never had scars, just bizarre stories, far-off theories. You're always just there, just sitting there, waiting for something. I'll never know what, but I guess you'll be the one stranger I can say I knew so well, yet not at all like myself. You were like looking in a rose-colored mirror. That's how you live, being everyone's tiny compact. Well, I guess you lost yourself along the way, or you never had yourself to begin with. I'm the one who's too scared to finish sentences, to finish books, to finish friendships, to finish poems.
A short poem, melodrama told matter-of-factly. My heart will swell and burst like a latex balloon, drowned plastic in the pool, melt cold misshapen without you to talk to. Terror painted in technicolor, frayed lemonade and sore laughter, my summers stained with you. Too vibrant, cheeks flushed with light, no parachute, I fell hard for your flaws, your bright eyes and broken words, small kindnesses you do. Lost living lies out right around the corner, each day a distance aching further. My heart aches never through.
Thanks, Emma. So, there we go. I'm bringing this up on my phone. So this is a piece from the beginning of a detective story that I'm working on. It was the end of an age. When the last of the great detectives died, no one thought much of it. Frankly, great was a relative term, since detecting wasn't much of a business anymore. From the lie detection system to watches that allowed the wearer to instantly call for help in any crisis, the world had become a much safer place, and detectives, for the most part, faded into the shadows. People felt more secure, and insecurity was the lifeblood of the detective business. Many detectives simply quit while they were still ahead, worming their way into the corporate workforce and putting away their magnifying glass for good. Others continued their work, and the lucky ones occasionally wound up in a tiny, tucked-away corner of the local newspaper for finding a lost pet or a bag that contained more makeup than it did money. Business was so bad, in fact, that some detectives resorted to faking crimes and asking for scandalous amounts of money to solve a case that wasn't even there. We had gotten ourselves quite a reputation. Newspaper headlines of robbery a hoax and detective in jail for fraud had become common. Several of my friends and colleagues had been involved in such schemes and been locked up. And though I had never been involved in anything of the kind, the angry populace began to incriminate me and all other detectives, implicating us in every crime that came along. Everyone was out to get us. Their pleas had turned into angry accusations, and their checks into hate-filled letters and humiliating newspaper columns.
Hello, everyone. I am going to be reading a piece of prose that I have worked on during the workshop called From Holmes to Moriarty. I charged into Baker Street with groceries and opened the fridge, flinching as I came face to face with a severed head. My brother Sherlock was always conducting experiments, and for some reason, he thought the best place to keep them was in the fridge. We keep food here, Sherlock, Jesus Christ, I thought as I grabbed the milk jug from one of the many bags on the counter. Suddenly, a voice called behind me. Did you miss me? I spun around, startled. The milk jug fell to the floor with a loud crash. The man in the hall smirked at me as the shattered jug began spilling its contents, the cold white milk mixing with the shattered glass at my feet. I stepped over the quickly growing puddle and made my way to the well-dressed man. I threw my arms around him and breathed in his heaty scent as I gasped his name. James. After a moment's hesitation, he wrapped his arms around me and buried his face in my hair. Hello, pet, he whispered softly. His well-tailored Westwood suit was soft, silky even, against my cheek. I pulled away just enough so that I could look into his eyes. Two sets of brown eyes meet. What are you doing here? I asked. I came to see you, of course, he responded a little too quickly. I stepped back and Jim let his arms drop. It wasn't in his character to drop by just to see me. I raised an eyebrow. Surely there's something else you wanted, I replied. I can't want to come see my beautiful girlfriend, he asked. I put a hand on my hip, eyebrows still raised. He made his way back to the living room. After a moment's hesitation, I followed behind him. He never visits Sherlock's flats for social visits. Thank you.
This is nonfiction. Most people's red blood cells are shaped like donuts. Mine are like basketballs. This is caused from one of my two rare blood disorders called hereditary spherocytosis. One major setback this disorder leaves me is my spleen isn't built for the particular cells. So when my red blood cells travel through my spleen, they get lodged into it, causing it to be enlarged. This restricts my ability to play any contact sports, so I don't die. This disorder challenges me every day. It causes me to be fatigued, sit out of some sports, and make me pay attention to all the stupid stuff I do in a day. What this disorder really has taught me over the years is to accept yourself and others. There are people who have much worse conditions than mine, so instead of groping to everyone I meet about my disorder, I don't normally bring it up. Everybody carries something about themselves they don't normally share to others, so don't judge people based on how they look or act, because it is possible they have issues they deal with every day. Thank you.
So tonight I have an excerpt from a story I wrote called Rain of Tears. The strident shrill of the whistle resonated throughout the length of the trench as men clambered out of the holes pockmarking its floors and walls. Their grimy leather boots sloshed through the ankle-deep mud, which gargled and burped in agony as it was assaulted mercilessly by legions of feet and pounded by the heavy grain raindrops. The musty, humid smell accentuated the fear which hung idly in the air, and the rain which bounced upon the steel helmets was drowned out by the thunderous blasts falling from the heavens, which resonated for miles, jarring the mute trees awake, gently rustling their dead gray branches. Shivering and cold, the men formed a ragged line in the trench. Their faces were scarred with sagacity, and their clothes splattered with an uncomfortable layer of viscous brown mud that seeped through and dribbled down into the heavy leather boots. The droplets of rain fell with distinct individual sounds, depending on the angle at which they plunged into the earth, and in the fleeting silence between the resonating roars of the cannons, one could almost discern the harmonious cacophony which rang like sweet soft bells. Fixed bayonets, the dreaded shrill cry echoed down the length of the serpentine trench, weaving from ear to ear, and though every urge called against it, hundreds of calloused hands mindlessly groped and fumbled for the long metallic knives hidden in the refuge of their leather sheaths. The blades, silver and pristine, gleamed in the light of the distant explosions as they snapped onto their rifles with an uncannily satisfying click.
A brilliant night. First, a small spark, not enough to wake me from the sleep my conscience clutches dearly. But then the bellowing boom of this disastrous storm cracks my eyelids apart. Body unmoved, but mind racing towards the window to see what has come about from the clouds. The frantic tapping of raindrops against my walls pulls my listless body from my rooted place. The sky pours heavier, the winds swirl stronger. The raging storm has shedded its mild skin and revealed its violent depths. The window again, crackling with the wet touch of the sky, but another force is at play. The split comes swiftly, fracture, and then the full burst of the howling night surges its way into the room. Shattered glass pierces the flesh on my hands as I reach my head out the window into the bastardous night. And suddenly, another force is at play. The walls follow the vacuuming air, whisked away so carelessly as if nothing ties them to the foundation. I am frightened by this night, not prepared for the time to come, but another force is at play. I stand there in awe of the aptitude at which this storm has shattered my illusions of partition from this great beast. Raindrops pour over me, the wind upsets my balance, but the night does not overcome my mind and body. Filled with glee at the bewildering sight of chaos the storm has brought, the lawless nature of natural destruction, I smile and I yell, a roaring, almighty cry of pure and utter astonishment. Now I am awake.
Hey, I'm reading an excerpt. Hey, I'm reading an excerpt from The Surface of Marble. Oh, I can read loud enough. Okay. The Surface of Marble. From the moment I laid eyes on David, I envied him. He was my mom's boyfriend. David was tall, athletic, with luxurious, rich brown hair pulled back into a ponytail. His tattoos on his arms were glorious, an array of dark blues and silvers. He was a statue, his texture made of polished marble. I envied David's confidence and charisma. The way he was able to inspire and make my mother smile was beyond compare. My mom and David started dating, and it didn't take too long for him to move in. We were all happy to welcome David into our family. However, it all ended. One day, David and I went on a camping trip. It was the heart of summer. The leaves were ripe with shades of green. I smiled, admiring David's magnificent skill with a spatula. Each flip of the patty was gentle but precise. He called out, "Hey, little dude, come here." David guided my hands to the spatula, then said, "Now it's your turn, my man." He patted my head before walking away and taking a seat. I started to shake in my boots while staring at the grill's fire, lost in its flames. A hand then wrapped around my wrist. I turned to see David smiling. "Don't worry, I'm here," he said. I looked up at an indestructible statue. Thank you.
Okay, so I have a piece called America's New Nursery Rhyme. She watches as dawn breaks over the night, her family caught before first light. She watches as they're dragged away from the border to preserve America's existing order. She watches her childhood vanish forever along with all wishes or destined endeavors. She watches a dove that falls from the sky, shot down too soon it releases a cry. She watches it plummet down to the ground, paralyzed, broken, and makes not a sound. She watches their wishes crash to a halt. The cruelty and fairness, it was never their fault. She watches her chances like a sheepskin shorn, all because of the place she was born. She watches humanity from itself turn away, compassion, unity, now a fallen archway. She weeps for the land they cannot see, no future, no dreams, no liberty.
I wrote this on the way in the car, and then I realized this morning it actually was halfway decent. So it's called Aspirations. I want to learn to be selfless for myself. I want to learn to set myself aside, become someone else, take their problems and figure them out, on break from my own. I want all of humanity. I want diversity and emotion. I want to gobble up people and spit out a reflection of them, shiny and expressive, newfound. I want to feel, with a fire in my chest and an ocean in my stomach, pure emotion so strong it is like staring at the sun, as it is too beautiful and blazing to bear. I think it's over until I see a solar imprint on my vision, until I can't see past what it was like to feel that strongly. It is never gone. I want a garden of words and stories. Watch them blossom while I watch others die. See the cycles, test the soil, find connections between them all, create bouquets of those who whisper. Sometimes I reach out to the bushes growing along the road, call them mine, as I feel their soft, lush leaves and branches. I can reach out and hug houses, break physics with my small frame and big heart. I can pick cars themselves off the road, examine them, a curious giant. I wonder what one larger than me would find. What's my story? Still selfish. I am hungry for this knowledge, hungrier than I am for anything. The knowledge of a lifetime is the knowledge of a life. And that is all.
So, as most of you know, I have a haiku. But I changed it during yoga today. So kudos to Lauren. Scoliosis. Spine, you had one job. You twist, turn, a metaphor. Bent, but not broken. That's it, so.
Okay, I'm reading two very short poems, starting with Series of Reflection. People are too much life in their wrinkled lines, too much noise in their ears like carefully crafted mazes, too much to feel swimming in their shining eyes. If I look too long, I see it. But not from down here. From beneath the seafoam green, the world is kindly softened, blurred into manageable strokes of color and simple echoes of sound, humanity distilled to its vaguest shape, details washed away. So many blank spaces for me to fill. This is the way I prefer the world, but there are consequences to staying underwater. And then my next poem is June 10th, 1922 to June 22nd, 1969. Dorothy, in all her ruby-slippered glory, thought she had seen behind the curtain. But that was just a prologue so long before the credits roll. Time yet for galas of glittering gold, awards, the applause she so deserves. Little does she know this epic of lipstick and pin-up poses, sultry tunes and long-stemmed roses ends in overdose.
The title of my piece is A Guide to Godlike Aggression. Rip the waves and the water into a spitting image of your face. Toss the dinosaurs into the ocean, bend each straight palm tree so its bark gets a backache, crush beach rocks until they match the texture and color of your skin. Fill coconuts with sweet milk, then make them grotesque balls of leg hair hard as your kneecap. Place them on the bent palm trees so even the birds can see their grossness and giggle. Fill oysters with tear snot and ask them where they were that Tuesday when it rained all day. When they answer incorrectly, abandon them at sea, bite patterns into smooth shells, give the sea a salt smell, make the Caribbean remember your name. But when it's all over, and you sit in your mess, in your handprint of his creation, and you look up and the sun hasn't blinked, don't be surprised when the caves and the canyons of sand are still echoing his name, his name, his name. Thank you.
Hello. I'd like to say I'm not simple, but I am a treat. This is called Don't Count on It. His dad left him on the curb when he was 10 years old, told him to count to 100 and he'd be back. When he entered the Nine Lives Tavern, Zeke started to count. He got to 10 and heard glass shatter. At 50, 3 gunshots in rapid succession. 100 was the sound of sirens. His dad was back, on a stretcher, 4 wheels. After 100, there were no more sounds, but he didn't stop counting. After the ambulance left, there was just one, himself, still on the curb. And then there were 2. When a woman loomed over him with one look of pity. She said words, but he didn't hear them. In the tavern there were 9 bar stools, and he sat, or rather was placed, on the 5th one from the door. He didn't remember being carried, he remembered counting. 357 glass shards, 18 patches of blood stained the floor, 12 looks of pity as all the patrons filed out. A pantsuit with a coat put on too fast led him to a car. He counted 57 street lamps to the hospital. All the noises rushed to him at once, and he almost fell over in the hall of the ICU, room number 2030. One doctor asking, "Is this your father?" 4 times. It took 1 nod, 4 seconds. The time was 5:07 p.m. The death certificate was signed, and they took his father away forever. 3 more looks of pity, 17 more street lamps to an office, 7 more pantsuit wearers, but still just 1 boy. He had never felt this before, being a single unit. It was always 2, him and his father. Now it was just 1, not even enough to count.
This is a prose piece. It's called For Granted. The day mankind was born, babies wailed from their mothers' wombs, and at this realization of life, fathers rejoiced. They breathed and cried and stood upright, wandering desolate land. Aimless and alone, they cowered in darkness. People looked to the stars for consolation, refusing to believe that their existence could be random. They played with fire. Man rubbed sticks together and confronted the heat in curiosity, only to be scorched. Woman gathered. She outstretched her arm for nature's harvest, topped by the tart of poison berries. Men thawed hides as winter threatened. Natives bonded and stripped of their face paint, braided their hair in solidarity. Children bathed in lagoons, mothers carrying them in one arm, cupping water in their hands and pouring it gently over fragile heads. Rain relieved the drought, cleansing the earth. Man and woman loved. Wars began and ended. The untranslatable was spoken, decayed soon after in the speaker's throat. Man knelt at the corpses of fellow man and grieved, revitalized. He could only realize the value of his life once he witnessed life's depravity. Thank you.
This piece is called For the Freaks in the Back. This is for the freaks in the back, for the queers and the cripples, the losers and loners. This is for the ones who get called faggot until the words sink in to convince them it was only a phase. This is for the ones who are crying for help and for refuge, for anyone to notice, for someone to care. This is for the ones who are spit on, for the ones who are stomped on day after day and are laughed at and pushed off of the edge. This is for the ones who feel helpless, for the ones who have no one to turn to and so turn to their wrists just so they can feel. This is for every and anyone who has ever felt different or toxic or lost. You are not alone. Thank you.
Self-portrait of a postcard.
Do not mistake these postages for love letters into the distance that damaged what memory preceded the past, photographs attached to the present moments. I carry these in few words so the rest speaks. The pictured smile wavers somewhere inside because I cannot remember many things. The golden ring. I do not know what insurrection drew me to you. You glint golden hems in such indistinguishable artistry that carves into those marble stone sculptures, those craftsman hands that etch you from rock too. I found you poised inside the gift shop's window of that art museum, undressed of pearls and diamonds, just as simple gold, a fragment of home and looking like my father's wedding band. In Rio, they eloped in those promises, and as years passed, I see my mother and father drinking and swaying, putting out cigarettes in the dead night, running to casinos as I eat omelets like Gramps. Why are you home late? Have you been drinking? Time is a crushing anecdote. When flesh devolves into just woman and man, tongues that throb and bicker into dust. What becomes is nothing but two bodies that shadow over another's existence. The fourth finger bruised, I anticipate from fear of absolute demise, because love could only be bounded by a common enemy.
My poem is titled Abba. When my eyes were swollen and streaming, he stole the tears from my cheeks and cried for me. Look at the sunlight, he said. Look at the trees. Listen to them sing when the wind dances through their leaves. They will guide you to me. When my shoulders drooped and my feet anchored, he took my hand in his and led for me. Look at the sunlight, he said. Look at the clouds. Follow them as they dance above mountains and give water to the earth. They will guide you to me. When my mouth clamped shut and words refused to come, he grasped syllables from the air and spoke for me. Look at the sunlight, he said. Look at the stars. Find the glittering paintings they leave for you in the night sky to light your path. They will guide you to me. When my knees buckled and my lungs gave out, he lifted me onto his shoulders and walked for me. Look at the sunlight, he said. Reach inward and touch it. When the trees and the clouds and the stars greet you, I will be there. I am your sunlight and you are mine.
Okay, so my poem's kind of making fun of teenage poets, but I'm a teenage poet, so I don't know. To be a teenage poet. To be a teenage poet is to take everything to heart, to wallow in the depths of your misery, to make even the slightest of action seem insurmountable. To be a teenage poet is to know it's only you against the world, to understand no one is on your team, to revel in the unimportance of your mere human existence. To be a teenage poet is to be overflowing with angst, to write about how you secretly wish to sparkle brighter than Edward, despise Twilight, to feel that no one gets you in your upper middle class white girl suppression. To be a teenage poet is to stick it to the man, to fight society's norms, to drown out your worries in a venti cotton candy frappuccino, double pump of strawberry syrup with extra whipped cream, after a night when you literally got 2 hours of sleep. To be a teenage poet is to feel dead inside, to line your eyes with liner blacker than your soul, to listen with nothing but My Chemical Romance because they get you. To be a teenage poet is to use a thesaurus to make you sound smart, erudite, to fake it till you make it, to hope and pray you get your assignment in by 11:59.
All right, so this is a poem, but thankfully I am not a teenage poet. And this is, I go to a Catholic school. It's not one of those crazy Catholic schools. It's a Jesuit school, and they're pretty much the Catholic far left. But it's still an all-boys Catholic school. I don't believe in God. I haven't had my first communion, but I get communion when I go to Mass. I don't go to Mass, except when I have to at school. One senior I knew told me Regis made me a devout Catholic. That didn't happen freshman year. I didn't think about God or Jesus or being a man for others. It was just school, but with a class about God and Mass sometimes. It'll change sophomore year, I thought, on that retreat that's supposed to be a formative experience. It was a formative experience, but not the right type of formative experience. It heightened my atheist fervor. At least I got close with my friends after we all cried together. Thank you.
I'm small. Okay. The Lost Boy. Your shoes were left on our doorstep, battered and caked in mud, your soccer bag tossed to the side, its contents spilling out. The stiff-armed officer said to us that boys will be boys, then walked away from our vacant house, kicking your soccer ball away from the door. The neighbors said you'd be home soon, your arms painted in bruises and cuts from all the exploring you did without us in the forest surrounding our home. They found your favorite gray t-shirt crumpled into a ball lying outside the old schoolhouse where children used to play kickball and pull apart the dandelions that grew in the unkempt yard. We could see your ribs when we found you, all encrusted with dirt and grime. We cradled you close to our chest as we carried you back to your unwrinkled bed.
All right, so this is a piece I wrote a couple of months ago about Okinawa, Japan, where my mom's family is from. And I wasn't going to read it today, but when I woke up this morning, I found out that today is Okinawa Memorial Day. So I was like, I kind of have to now. So this is Piece for Okinawa. Tomari Fish Market. Every tile redolent of the countless tuna dragged over it this morning. Emi, ahi, aji. I never noticed that Ko-chan's feet are wide-set and hairy like mine, and Ko-chan is the leatheriest man I know. Raw skewer taco in front of the hanbaiki. It's funny how no matter where you go in the world, old leathery men like to sit on upturned crates and drink beer on the street. Some of these ojis might remember when the island was serenaded by bombshells. The typhoon of steel passed over once loud and lewd and bustling izakayas that are strip clubs for American soldiers now. Footsteps patter on tatami. The typhoon took their bodies, but they still like to dance. A pin slides from a grenade. Never mind, it's just the sliding of a shoji screen. The tatami room is still warm and humid, but it's dark outside. I can smell yakitori wafting in from the window. Outside they are grilling and dancing again. I get up to go out and dance with them. Thank you.
Okay, hi. This is a song called Stay the Night. All right. I gotta know what's on your mind. So take a look into my eyes, So let me know, 'cause if I'm right, you could be mine. So let it go. Show me your soul and let me love you. You are the closest thing I've seen to perfection. You are an angel with a devil's dress on. Stay for the night.
How do you say I love you? I said it beneath the moon and rain, under the spotlight of headlights. I said it while the world waited, and I know they say it waits for no one, but I swear to you it did. I said it in front of spectators that couldn't hear us. I said it in words we misunderstood. How do you say I love you? I said that you helped me feel like I belong. I said everything I knew to say and everything yet to be written between us. That was how I said I love you, but neither of us knew it. Still, I told you without knowing that we were both starting to fall. How do you say I love you? We fell as two birds with one wing, unaware we were falling together. But when you extended yours, I tucked mine beneath us. I didn't mean to make us crash, but I didn't know what love meant. I didn't know how to fly. How do you say I love you? You kept saying it as we fell in your smiles and jokes. You said it when you waved to me from the stage. You said it when you stayed with me as everyone else got on roller coasters. And you said it when you found me in a crowd of people, my first day of high school, just to say hello. So how do you say I love you? You say it in words you don't understand, with the hope that when you begin to fall together as two birds, you will learn to soar.
You're too kind, Justin. The black car pulled into the alley. Tinted windows, shiny paint, the whole works. An everyday man on the way home from his 9-to-5 job at the factory, coming home with a sense of mozzarella and diced tomatoes could tell was owned by one of the bosses. The car reached the unloading area of the factory. Two men in suits stood outside, guarding the door, bald and decorated with pizza-themed ties that said Lou Malnati's on them, their faces indiscernible from each other. They paid little attention to the passing car until it slowed down. As one of the guards started walking towards the car, a window lowered and out came the barrel of a Tommy gun. Before the man could react to the sudden threat, bullets sprayed him across the chest. As sudden as they started, the bullets stopped and the man fell to the ground, dripping with what looked to be pizza sauce out of the fresh holes in his body. The second guard raised his gun, about to fire, when the Tommy gun fired again, leaving him like his buddy, covered in pizza sauce and holes, no cheese to top him. With both men losing their sauce, the driver got out and opened the rear door. Stop. And opened the rear door, allowing for a man more wide than tall to step forward. His striped white jacket and pants were accompanied with white boots. The monogram PP was stamped into the boots, letting anyone who managed to catch a glance at the bottom of the man's boots know his affiliation showed with Pequod's Pizza. Two other men, neither as massive as the boss, yet both absolute units, emerged from the car. Boss, you sure this is the place? His voice was gruff, reminiscent of times in the old country. The boss looked at him, his eyes narrowing as his giant maw jiggled with each syllable. How about you shut your trap and let me do the talking, all right? Capiche? The goon's massive shoulders slouched. Three men entered the back door into the warehouse, filled to the brim with bound boxes. There were hardly enough space for the machinery, whirring and hissing as they fought to meet the day's quota. The smell of fresh pizza permeated everything, sticking to the boxes and men. And that's it.
This is insomnia. Can't sleep, so I'm lying in bed, listening to the ghosts shuffling along the ceiling. They don't do much, just creak their way around and flick the lights on and off and on because they're dead and they can't quite agree how these things should be. They breathe on my windows and mirrors and draw faces in the cracked glass. My sister's old green bike follows just behind me. I swear I see her hands reaching from the handlebars to play with the smoke from cigarettes and burnt food, hear her as she howls at the moon. The lake by that house wants to drown me, I think. Reaches out fingers to drag me out by the hair at midnight, night after night. Once, I watched a girl swan dive in. Now it's 2 a.m. and I'm alone. Again, but my ghosts hover above me and sing always unfinished songs. And by popular demand, I also am reading a haiku that I wrote earlier this year, and I've been asked to dedicate it to Allie. It is called Betrayal. My cat tried to kill me. Come on, dude. I love you. I mean, ow, that hurt.